to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into the complex topic of poverty.
It is complex,
Yeah.
something people often think is straightforward, but, well, it's really not.
Exactly. And we've looked at our source material, poverty.pdf, to kind of unpack it for you.
Yeah, trying to get beyond just the simple definitions, looking at what's really going on.
Right. Our mission today, figure out what poverty actually means, what's driving it.
And, crucially, what can be done, how we can effectively, address it.
So let's start there. You said it's not just simple definitions.
That's right. It's far more than just, well, lacking money. It's really this whole web of challenges.
Okay, but there is a sort of baseline, isn't there? This idea of extreme poverty. What's the global take on that?
There is. The World Bank sets the benchmark for extreme poverty at living on less than $2.15 a day.
$2.15 a day.
Yeah, and that's based on 2017 purchasing power parity, basically,
Mm-hmm.
what that amount can actually buy in terms of basic survival needs across different countries.
Got it. So it adjusts for local costs.
Precise.
And that's quite different from relative poverty, which we hear about more in, say, wealthier countries.
Absolutely, a really key distinction. Relative poverty isn't about that absolute survival line.
It's more about comparison.
Exactly. It measures a person's income against the average income in their own specific country.
Ah, okay. So you could be above $2.15 a day.
Way above, potentially. But if you're significantly below your society's average, you might lack resources to, fully participate in life, access opportunities considered normal there.
So inequality itself can create a kind of poverty experience.
That's a good way to put it, even without that absolute scarcity.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the source also talks about something called multidimensional poverty. What does that add to the picture?
It's a critical concept. Multidimensional poverty really highlights that focusing only on income, whether absolute or relative, is often measuring the problem in the wrong way.
How so? What does it look at instead?
It looks beyond the wallet. It considers deprivations across different aspects of a person's life simultaneously. Think health, education, living standards.
Can you give some specific examples? What kind of deprivations are we talking about?
Sure. Things like not having access to basic health care, or kids not completing primary school, or even basic living standards like reliable electricity, clean water, decent sanitation, safe cooking fuel.
So someone might technically have income above the poverty line.
Right. But they could still be living without electricity or clean water, meaning they're experiencing poverty in a very real, multidimensional way. It captures those non-monetary aspects of deprivation.
That really paints a fuller picture. So given all these layers, what does the source tell us about the causes? What actually drives poverty?
Well, it's rarely just one thing. The source points to a mix of factors,
Mhm.
often intertwined. There are key economic drivers.
Like jobs.
Exactly. Unemployment, or jobs that just don't pay enough low wages.
Right.
Also, lack of access to finance, making it hard to start a small business, that sort of thing.
And social factors too, I imagine.
Definitely. Things like poor access to quality education, which limits future opportunities. Poor health care is a big one. Illness can be debilitating and costly. And then there's systemic discrimination based on gender, caste, ethnicity, you name it.
That's a lot already. But there are bigger external forces too.
Huge ones. Conflict and political instability are massive drivers. They displace millions, destroy infrastructure, wreck economies.
You see that time and again.
And increasingly, we have to talk about climate change and natural disasters. Floods, droughts, extreme weather. They can absolutely devastate vulnerable communities, especially those relying on farming.
It's easy to see how all that hits human capital, hard people's health, their education, their skills, leading to things like kids being stunted, not finishing school.
Precisely. And these individual impacts scale up.
So what are those broader impacts? And I guess the big question amidst all this difficulty, has there been any progress?
Well, the broader impacts are significant. Widespread poverty holds back national development, puts huge strain on public services, and can fuel social unrest. It creates these cycles that are hard to break.
Depressing stuff. But the progress question.
But yes, there has been real progress, especially against extreme poverty globally, significant reductions over the past few decades.
Really? Where have we seen the most success?
Particularly in regions like East Asia and South Asia, the data shows millions lifted out of extreme poverty. And the World Bank actually projects a continued modest decline globally, maybe down to around 6.9% by 2025 from 10.5% in 2022.
Okay, that's genuinely encouraging, a glimmer of hope, as you say. So, what works? What are the key strategies the source points to for moving forward?
The core strategies really revolve around a few key areas. First, sustainable economic growth, but it has to be inclusive growth, benefiting everyone, not just a few.
Right, not just growth for growth's sake.
Exactly. Second, major investments in human capital. That means education, healthcare, nutrition, really building people's capability.
Makes sense.
And third, strong social safety nets, systems to protect the most vulnerable people, to catch them when they fall.
So it sounds like a multi-pronged approach is needed. International aid, government action, better resource distribution, jobs, good governance.
It all needs to work together. No single magic bullet. It's
Yeah.
about coordinated, sustained effort across the board.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive on poverty. It's clearly, as we've discussed, a really complex, multifaceted challenge.
Absolutely.
But importantly, the source material shows there are pathways forward, proven strategies that can make a real difference.
Definitely. And perhaps a final thought for you, our listener. Given all these interconnected factors we've talked about, the economic, social, environmental aspects, what part of this makes you think differently about how we might approach solutions, maybe your own community or even globally?